I've worked the night shift at Mercy General Hospital for 7 years. During the day, it's like any other medical facility. Doctors, nurses, the normal chaos of people trying to save lives. But when the sun goes down, when the day staff leaves and the building empties out, that's when you learn what Mercy General really is. It's not haunted in the way you might think, not with violent poltergeists throwing things or apparitions screaming in the hallways. No, what haunts this place is far more subtle, far more intelligent, and infinitely more dangerous. I've seen 17 security guards quit their job in the time I've worked here. 2 of them quit mid-shift and never came back for their final paychecks. One of them is currently in the psychiatric ward on the 3rd floor, and one of them never left the building at all. But I'm still here, still alive, still sane. You want to know why? Because I follow 6 rules. 6 specific rules that keep you safe in this place after dark. I'm going to tell you what those rules are, and I'm going to tell you what happens when you break them. My name's Marcus Webb. I'm a night security guard at Mercy General Hospital, and this is how you survive until dawn. Mercy General was built in 1962 on the site of what used to be a psychiatric institution, Riverside State Hospital. Most people don't know that. It's not in the hospital's promotional materials, but the old records are still in the basement archives. I've read them, all of them. Between 1952 and 1961, Riverside State conducted what they called experimental treatments, electroshock therapy, ice water immersion, insulin shock treatments, lobotomies performed by doctors who had no business holding a scalpel. When Riverside closed down and Mercy General was built on the same land, they didn't demolish the old building. They built directly on top of it, sealed it up, pretended it never existed. But the people who died there, they're still here. And they're not happy about being buried under a new building. They're not happy about being forgotten. So they wait, they watch, they test every new night security guard who comes through the door. I didn't know any of this when I started. I just needed a job. Night shift pays better, and I was going through a divorce. The extra money was worth the slightly creepy atmosphere, or so I thought. It took exactly 3 nights of working here before I realised something was fundamentally wrong with this place. The first incident happened on my 3rd night. I was doing my usual rounds, checking locked doors, monitoring the security cameras, making sure nothing was out of place. You know, standard stuff. I got to the 4th floor around 11 PM, and that's when I heard it. A child laughing in a hospital at 11 PM, in a ward that has been empty all day. I checked the visitor logs. No children had been signed in. I checked the pediatric ward. Empty. All the kids admitted that day were on different floors. So I did what every rational person would do. I investigated. I followed the sound down the hallway, around the corner, to a door marked "Authorized personnel only." The laughter got louder, clearer, and then it stopped. Complete silence. But I could feel something, a presence, standing right on the other side of the door, waiting for me to open it. I didn't open the door. I don't know why. Some instinct told me not to. I walked away, finished my rounds, and I clocked out. But I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I did what any paranoid person with internet access would do. I researched. It took me 2 weeks of digging through archived newspapers, hospital records, and obscure websites dedicated to haunted locations. But I finally found it. An article from 1959. A lawsuit filed by the families of patients who died at Riverside State Hospital under suspicious circumstances. 34 people, all classified as untreatable, all subjects of experimental procedures, and all of them died within the hospital walls. The lawsuit was settled out of court, sealed records, money paid to families with NDAs. The whole thing disappeared from public knowledge like it had never happened. There was one name that appeared in multiple documents: Dr. Edmund Carver, Chief of Psychiatric Services at Riverside. He had a reputation for being unconventional, brutal. Some of the documents suggested. There were whispers, just whispers, nothing officially documented, that some of his patients didn't just die, they were murdered, experiments taken too far, tests that no human being should ever endure. Dr. Carver died in 1961, heart attack, found in his office at Riverside. They closed the hospital 2 months later. The building was demolished in 1962, and Mercy General was constructed on the exact same location. Ground was never properly concentrated. Bodies were never properly moved. The whole place was just built over, like putting a fresh coat of paint over blood. That's when I started paying attention. That's when I started keeping a journal. Every strange occurrence, every impossible sound, every movement when something felt profoundly wrong in this building. And I started seeing the pattern. It took me 3 months to formulate the 6 rules. 3 months of careful observation, near-death experiences, and learning what worked and what didn't. I watched the other security guards. I documented who lasted and who didn't. I paid attention to what separated the survivors from the ones who broke. The pattern was clear. The ones who followed certain protocols made it through their shifts unscathed. The ones who didn't, well, they either quit or they ended up on a psychiatric hold. One of them is still here actually, room 347. He stopped talking about 6 months ago. Just stares at the wall. Sometimes he smiles, sometimes he cries, but he never speaks anymore. So here are the 6 rules. I'm telling you them now, in this order, because this is the order of importance. Break them in sequence and you might survive. Break them all at once and you won't see morning. Rule 1. Never make eye contact with anyone wearing a hospital gown on the 3rd floor after midnight. The 3rd floor is where they kept the most severe cases at Riverside State, the ones deemed permanently untreatable, violent patients, catatonic patients, patients who have been subjected to so many procedures that they could barely be classified as human anymore. When Mercy General was built, the 3rd floor became the intensive care ward, mostly coma patients, people on life support, people who are here but not really here. But after midnight, you'll see them, figures in hospital gowns, walking the hallways, moving through walls, appearing in places they couldn't possibly be. And if you make eye contact with one of them, if you acknowledge their presence through that basic form of human connection, they become aware of you. They'll follow you, not aggressively at first, just there, in your peripheral vision, standing in doorways, reflected in monitors. But the more you ignore them, the more frustrated they become, and eventually they try to make you see them, really see them. And when they do that, when they force you to acknowledge them, they have you. I broke this rule once, about 4 months in. There was a patient on the 3rd floor, a man in his 60s. Real name was James Chen, admitted after a massive stroke. He'd been in a vegetative state for 2 years. One night, around 1 a.m, I was walking past his room and I saw him standing by the window, fully awake, staring at me with these eyes that were too clear, too aware. I made eye contact, just for a second, but that was enough. His mouth opened, not to speak, but impossibly wide, like his jaw was unhinged. And he started moving towards me, not walking, gliding, like he was being pulled on strings. I ran, I admit it, I ran like a child. I didn't stop until I was back in the security office with all the doors locked. I watched the camera feed. The figure that looked like James Chen walked into the hallway, looked at the camera, and then just faded, like he was never there. But in the ICU, James Chen was still in his bed, still in a vegetative state, still exactly where he'd been for 2 years. I never made that mistake again. Now, when I'm on the 3rd floor after midnight, I keep my eyes forward. I don't look at faces, I don't acknowledge their presence, and I never, ever look into windows of the rooms where the long-term patients are stored. Rule 2. The elevator only stops at certain floors after 2 a.m. If it stops at your floor you didn't request, get out immediately. Don't wait for the doors to close. Don't look back. This one took me a while to understand. The elevator system at Mercy General is old, predates even the hospital itself. They kept the original elevator from Riverside State Hospital and integrated it into the new building. It's a massive brass and steel thing, the kind they don't make anymore, and it has a mind of its own. Most of the time, it works fine. Normal elevator goes where you press. But after 2 a.m, things change. The elevator will stop at floors you didn't request. The doors will open, and in that gap, you'll see hallways that aren't part of the regular hospital layout. Hallways from the old Riverside building, the ones that exist in the sealed off sections below ground. The first time that happened to me, I was stupid enough to stand in the doorway and look. The hallway beyond wasn't lit by normal lights. It was this sickly green colour, like something was glowing underneath the walls. And I could see people walking down that hallway, dozens of them, all in hospital gowns, all walking in the same direction, towards something I couldn't see, and they all turned to look at me at the exact same moment. I got out, slammed the button to close the doors. The elevator descended and opened normally on the ground floor. But for the next 3 days, I kept seeing them, in my dreams, in mirrors, at the edge of my vision. They were all looking for me. Because I'd seen them, I acknowledged that part of the building existed. Now, when the elevator stops at a floor I didn't request after 2 a.m, I exit immediately. I don't look, I don't hesitate, I just get out and take the stairs. The stairs are safe, the stairs are normal, but the elevator knows things, and it's testing you every time you step inside after midnight. Rule 3. The bathroom mirrors on the 2nd floor don't reflect accurately between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. If you see something in the mirror that isn't you, do not break eye contact. Back away slowly, leave the bathroom and lock it from the outside. This one is strange. I'm still not entirely sure I understand the mechanism behind it, but I know it's real because I've seen the aftermath, and because it almost happened to me. The bathroom on the 2nd floor used to be part of the operating theatre complex at Riverside State. Doctors would scrub in there before procedures, mirror the entire wall, marble sink, very clinical, very clean. When they built Mercy General, they sealed off most of that section, but they kept the bathroom because the plumbing was already there. It made sense financially. But the mirror remembers. It remembers what happened in that operating theatre. It remembers the procedures. And after 1 a.m, it stops reflecting the present. Instead, it shows you the past. It shows you what's really in this building, what's underneath, what's watching from behind the walls. I went into that bathroom at 2:47 a.m, about 5 months into working here. I was half asleep, not thinking clearly. I walked up to the sink and I started washing my hands, normal routine. And then I looked at the mirror. For a moment, I didn't see myself. I saw someone else, a man in his 50s, wearing a doctor's coat stained with blood. His eyes were wrong, too dark, too aware. He was smiling at me, and he was holding something in his hands. A device, something metal with straps and electrical connections, something from the 1950s, something designed to cause maximum pain. For a fraction of a second, I almost broke eye contact, almost looked away, but something told me that was the wrong move, so I did the opposite. I held his gaze, I stared directly at him, and I backed away from the sink slowly, never taking my eyes off him. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps towards the door. And then I was out. I locked the door immediately. I haven't been back in that bathroom since. But I've heard about what happens to security guards who break the rule, who look away first, who blink. They report seeing things, terrible things. Their reflections moving independently, their reflections grabbing at them through the mirror. In one case, a guard's reflection actually pulled him through the glass. They found him on the other side, unconscious, with cuts all over his body from the broken mirror. But when they looked at the mirror, it was intact, unblemished, like it had never happened. After that, he quit, said he wasn't going back in that building. I haven't seen him since. Rule 4, room 405 is always locked. Even if you have the master key, do not open it. Do not look through the window. Do not acknowledge that room exists. Room 405 is where Dr. Edmund Carver died. Heart attack, supposedly. But I've dug deeper. I found records in the basement archives, handwritten notes from nurses that were filed away and forgotten. What actually happened in room 405 was no heart attack. In 1961, Dr. Carver was conducting an experiment on a patient he believed had some kind of psychic abilities, someone sensitive to the supernatural, capable of communicating with the dead. Carver was trying to amplify these abilities using electrical stimulation directly to the brain. The experiment went wrong. Catastrophically, the patient went into convulsions, screamed for over an hour before dying, and Carver experienced some kind of neurological event himself. His brain couldn't process what was happening. Something broke inside him, something fundamental. He died in that room, holding the body of his dead patient, staring at something the nurses couldn't see. After Carver's body was removed, they sealed the room, not just locked it, sealed it. They filled the cracks around the door with concrete. They painted over the window. When Mercy General was built, they actually built around that room. It's still there, walled off, but it exists in the building's blueprint, room 405. I discovered this about 6 months ago. I was feeling confident, thought I understood the rules, thought maybe I could break one of them and survive. So I found the master key, found room 405, and I put the key in the lock. The door opened. I don't know how. It should have been sealed, but it opened and I saw inside. It was like looking into a photograph from 1961. Everything was exactly as it had been left. The equipment, the restraints on the hospital bed, the stains on the floor, and on the wall, written in dried blood, a formula, mathematical equations that hurt to look at directly. I felt it, felt him, Dr. Carver, standing in that room, staring at me. After more than 60 years, he was still there, still waiting, still conducting his experiment on anyone foolish enough to open that door. I slammed the door, the lock sealed itself. I walked away and I've never been back. But for weeks afterwards, I could feel him watching me, observing me, testing me. Every time I turned a corner, I felt like he was just around the bend. Every reflection in the window was him, not me. Every shadow held his presence. Eventually, the feeling faded, but I know I was marked that night. I broke the rule, and the only reason he hasn't come for me is because I followed all the other rules so religiously that I developed a kind of immunity. Or maybe he's just waiting for me to make another mistake, and when I do, he'll finally have his chance. Rule 5. Between 3 and 3:30 a.m., a patient will call the security desk. They'll ask you to come to their room immediately. Do not go. Do not answer. If you answer the phone, hang up. And whatever you do, do not go to their room. This rule took me the longest to figure out, because it seemed to come from nowhere. There's no logical explanation for it, but it's consistent. It happens between 3 and 3:30 a.m. almost every single night. A patient calls. They're terrified. They sound real. They sound like someone who actually needs help. The first time it happened, I went. Of course I went. A patient in distress, that's my job. I took the elevator to the 5th floor, got out, started walking towards the patient's room. But as I walked, I noticed something. The hallway looked different, longer than it should have been. The doors were spaced further apart, and the numbers didn't make sense. I'd passed room 502, then room 503, then room 505, number skipping, doors that weren't on the floor plan. I kept walking because I was confused, not because I wanted to. I was trying to find the right room, and then I heard it, a voice coming from down the hallway, calling my name. It sounded like a woman's voice, desperate, crying. I started moving faster. The hallway seemed to stretch. I could see a room ahead with a light spilling out. The door was open, and that's when I realized what was happening. The room number was 405, but I was on the 5th floor. Room 405 should have been on the 4th floor, and as I got closer, I could feel it, that presence, Dr. Carver, waiting in that room. The voice had been bait. The hallway had been drawing me in, and if I stepped through that doorway, I don't think I would have come back out. I ran, got back to the elevator. The doors opened immediately, came straight down, and I made myself a rule right then. When 3 a.m. came around and the phone started ringing, I would not answer it. I would let it ring. I would stay in the security office with the door locked and the volume on the radio turned up loud enough to drown out the sound. The second night I did that, it worked. The phone kept ringing for exactly 30 minutes, then it stopped. But I could hear screaming coming from the upper floors. Not loud, muffled, like it was coming from very far away. The kind of screaming someone makes when they're in unbearable agony but they're too exhausted to scream properly. The next morning, I checked the phone logs. That phone call that had lured me at that first night, it hadn't come from any room in the hospital. There was no incoming call registered in the system at all. Nothing. But I heard it. I answered it. And that should have been the end of me. Rule 6. At 4:47 a.m, the hospital is yours and yours alone. No patients, no staff, no security cameras. Just you in the building. This is when the building remembers what it really is. This is when it shows you. Do not be awake. Do not be watching. Do not be observing. This is the most important rule and the hardest to follow. At 4:47 a.m, something happens. I've never fully understood it, but I felt it enough times to know it's real. The building wakes up. The walls remember. The sealed off sections beneath the hospital become visible somehow. Not physically, but spiritually. You can sense them. You can feel the presence of all those people. All those patients who died under the care of Dr. Carver and his colleagues. All those souls trapped in the walls. If you're awake during this time, if you're conscious and aware, they know. They can see you, and they'll try to show you what they've experienced. They'll try to make you understand their suffering. They'll drag you into their memories, their pain, their final moments. I broke this rule once. I was determined to understand, determined to document what was really happening in this place at 4:47 a.m, so I set an alarm. I stayed awake. I positioned myself in the security office and I waited. 4:47 a.m. came, and it was like someone had flipped a switch. The lights dimmed, not completely, but enough to be noticeable. The temperature dropped, my breath became visible, and I could see them. Through the walls, through the ceiling, through the floor, hundreds of them, translucent figures, all moving in patterns that made no sense. Some walking down hallways that didn't exist anymore. Some strapped to tables, some convulsing, some just staring, all of them looking in my direction. One of them started moving towards me. I could see her face becoming clearer as she approached. A woman in her 30s, wearing a hospital gown from the 1950s. Her head was wrapped in bandages. There was blood seeping through them. She was reaching towards me, and I could hear her voice in my mind. I didn't think, I just reacted. I grabbed a bottle of water from my desk and I threw it at her. It passed right through her and shattered against the wall. The moment the bottle touched her, she screamed, not with her voice, but in her mind. The sound of agony, the sound of someone experiencing every terrible thing that had been done to her, all at once. And then every spirit in that building screamed with her. The sound was so loud, so overwhelming, that I lost consciousness. When I woke up, it was 5:47 a.m. Sunrise was an hour away, and I was bleeding from my nose, my ears, my eyes, like every vein in my head had burst at once. I went to the emergency room. They ran tests, found nothing medically wrong. Eventually, they gave me a psychiatric evaluation because they couldn't explain the bleeding. But I knew what had happened. I forced the spirits to acknowledge my presence at the worst possible time, and they tried to punish me for it. Now, every night at 4:47 a.m, I make sure I'm in the deepest sleep possible. I take medication if I have to. I do anything necessary to ensure I'm unconscious during that window, because I know that if I'm awake again at that time, if I'm conscious while the building remembers what it is, the spirits won't just scream. They'll try to take me with them. They'll try to make me one of them. Another trapped soul, another prisoner in the walls of Mercy General Hospital. So those are the 6 rules. Follow them and you'll survive. Break them all at once and, well, I've never seen anyone do that. I assume they don't make it to their next shift. But here's the thing I've learned in 7 years of working this job. These rules, they're not just about survival, they're about balance. The spirits in this building, the ones trapped in the walls, they're not mindless malevolents. They're intelligent. They're testing you. They're trying to see if you're different, if you're someone who can be trusted, someone who understands the rules of this place. The guards who quit, the ones who couldn't handle it, they broke the rules of defiance or confusion. They tested boundaries. They wanted to prove they were in control. The spirits didn't like that, so they drove them away, or worse. But the ones who follow the rules strictly, without question, without testing, the building eventually tolerates them, accepts them, stops trying to pull them under. I've been working here for 7 years. In that time, I've learned their patterns. I've learned when to be invisible, when to be silent, when to acknowledge the rules without even being told them. And the building has adapted to me. It no longer tests me the way it tests the new guards. It watches me. Yeah, it's always watching, but it's not trying to destroy me anymore. Sometimes, during those 4:47 a.m. moments when I'm deep in sleep, I dream about the patient in room 347, the one who stopped speaking 6 months ago. In my dreams, I can hear what he's thinking, and he's accepted something that the rest of us haven't. He's accepted that this building owns us now, that we belong to it, that we can either fight it or break under the pressure, or we can surrender and find a strange kind of peace. I'm telling you these rules because I know someone else is going to take this job. Someone who needs the money, someone who doesn't know what Mercy General really is. And I want them to have a chance, a better chance than I had. But I also want you to understand something. These rules aren't just for survival, they're proof of something bigger. They're proof that the world is stranger than most people realise, that some places are fundamentally wrong, that some buildings don't just have ghosts, they have purposes, dark purposes, purposes that continue long after the original architects are dead and forgotten. Dr. Carver didn't stop his experiments when he died. He continued them in spirit. And every night, more people get pulled into this, more security guards, more nurses, more patients who think they're just checking into a hospital have no idea they're walking into a place where the boundary between life and death, sanity and madness, reality and nightmare is negotiable. I don't know how long I can keep this up. 7 years is a long time to maintain this level of vigilance, to follow these rules perfectly, to never make a mistake. Sooner or later, I'm going to slip. I'm going to break one of them. And when I do, the building will finally have its way with me. But until then, I'll keep working. I'll keep following the rules. I'll keep doing my rounds and watching the cameras and staying quiet during the dangerous hours. And if you find yourself walking through those doors, needing a job, willing to work nights at a place nobody else wants to work, remember these rules. Follow them exactly. Don't test them. Don't doubt them. Don't think you're smarter than the building or stronger than the spirits that live in it. Because the building is patient and it's always hungry, and it's been waiting for someone like you for a very long time. My name's Marcus Webb. I've been a night security guard at Mersey General Hospital for 7 years. I follow 6 rules to survive, 6 rules that keep me alive and keep me sane. And I'm telling you these rules not as a warning, but as an invitation. The night shift at Mersey General starts at 11 PM. If you're interested in the job, send your resume to the Human Resources Department. Tell them Marcus sent you. Just remember the 6 rules, all of them. Always, good night, and welcome to Mersey General Hospital.